we're going to look at how to find confidence intervals for proportions. So a proportion is like a percentage, and we're going to look at what the variable p stands for here, and that's the population proportion. So if I wanted to know the percentage for the entire population underneath the study, it's use the variable p. But most of the time we can't find the entire population proportion, so we find a sample proportion. So we do a little study, a little sample survey, and we find the proportion from that sample, and that's called p hat. So that little caret on top is called a hat. If we have to calculate p hat, we divide x, which is the number of data in question, divided by the total sample size. Okay, so we'll look at that more when we get down to this problem here. And then q hat is the complement of p hat. That means if you take q plus p, you would get 1. All right, so that means you have the percentage that do and the percentage that don't in this case. And then we have our confidence interval here. Okay, so if we want to estimate the true proportion of the population, we would take the sample population proportion minus the margin of error, which is found by our z-score times the square root of p hat times q hat divided by n. Okay, so let's look at an example here. We have a random sample of 205 college students, and they were asked if they believe that places could be haunted. 65 of them responded yes. So we're going to use that sample and estimate the true proportion of college students who believe in the probability of haunted places with 99% confidence. Now this is just extra here, but according to Time magazine, 37% of Americans believe places can be haunted. Okay, so we need first to figure out what our sample proportion is. Okay, so p hat in this case, which is x divided by n. Now x is the 65, which were the number of data in question. They were the 65 that responded yes. And we're going to divide that by the total sample size, which in this case was the 205 people in the study. And we'll go ahead and write that as a decimal. So take 65 divided by 205, and we get 0.317. Right, which is going to be about 31.7%. Now we're going to go ahead and find the complement of that, q hat. All right, so that means we're just going to take 1 minus 0.317. Okay, so I'm going to go back here, 1 minus 0.317, and that means about 68.3% do not believe that places can be haunted. All right, and then the only other piece of information that we need here is n, which is our sample size. So in this case, that's 205. And then we also need our z-score that we're going to use that corresponds to the 99% confidence interval. So we've looked at these in the past when we did confidence intervals for the mean, and the 99% confidence interval translated to a z-score of 2.58. Okay, and the 95% confidence interval was 2, and the 90% confidence interval was 1.65. Those were the most common. Okay. All right, then we're just ready to plug the numbers in. So we start with a 0.317 minus 2.58 times the square root of 0.317 times 0.683, and that's all divided by 205. Okay, so let's see how that looks here in the calculator. I'm going to just type in 0.317 minus 2.58 square root, and I want the multiplication to be in a parenthesis here, so 0.317 times 0.683, and then I'll divide that by 205. And that's all underneath the square root, so I should be good. And that gives me an answer of 0.233. Okay, so that's the lower end of my proportion. And the upper end would be the same exact thing here, but with addition. So I'll see if I can squeeze that in. Okay. Nice thing about the graphing calculator is if I just choose second and enter, that pops up what I typed in before. And I'm just going to arrow back to the minus sign, change it to plus. And, oops, what did I do? Go to, put it in the wrong spot there, so let's insert a 7 here. There we go. And we get the upper end being 0.401. Okay, so then we are 99% confident that the true proportion of college students who believe that places can be haunted is between 0.233 and 0.401, or we could write this as 23.3% and 40.1%, okay, which fits in with the national average from the Time magazine, that 37% of Americans believe that places can be haunted.